All right, and we're live. Salutations, Joe.
Salutations, Reggie.
How goes it?
It goes well. It
What was that?
you know, home projects, home renovations, things like that. I got if you look here, this was yesterday's project. New
Look at
doors.
you being. Look at you being. Oh yeah, I saw those. Those are nice doors.
Thank you, thank you. They were free.
Pretty even better.
Doors were free. So
They could be purple, and it would be amazing. It'd be great.
they were right.
All right, so
Yeah, I came up.
Joe. Oh, go ahead, bud.
I was gonna kind of lead it. I came up with the idea of like greatest debuts, and we're gonna throw in returns as well because you can only have so many that were great debuts, and I mean great. I mean as in like not expected, um, kind of thing. Because let's face it, the internet ruined a lot of the debuts later on down the road. Um, so you couldn't. It wasn't as exciting. It's a lot better when you didn't know if it was, if it was coming. You had the rumors in the wrestling magazines that you had to pick up once a week or whatever from the store. And that's how we got our news back in the day. Reggie can agree with that or attest to that.
Yeah, you could pick up CWI magazine and read it, and then I'm asking, well, what does this mean? Or so and so the contract is expiring, but you had no idea it was a month to month thing. There was no
Right.
real internet at the time. Well, the internet was there, but it wasn't like it is today. Like it,
Oh
you
God.
know, Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, friggin' a whole 9 yards. It could be a friggin' mess.
So I want to kick off with probably in my eyes the greatest debut that I can bring up at the top of my head, and that was Chris Jericho. Um,
I was gonna say we might have a few similar ones on the list,
I
and
think that
clearly
was
Y2J was one of them.
by far probably one of the greatest debuts in probably wrestling history. Um, Everyone knew he did leave WCW, but we didn't know where he was going, right? And then you remember the build up to it with the countdown, right? And I don't know about you, but I didn't know Chris Jericho as the Millennium Man. And when he was in WCW, I knew him as Chris Jericho, like the lion tamer type deal because of his finisher and all that. Um, and he had the clock, and then he had the Rock cutting a promo, and then that's when the countdown ended. And
Yeah, for him to come out and have them have him interrupting the Rock.
they already knew
Yeah,
they're going to make a big push with him.
it's crazy. I kept a couple of interviews or specials. They weren't, or at least Vince wasn't sold on Jericho from the beginning. He wasn't sold on him for a while.
Right. But I think Jericho proved all the haters wrong with his debut, his versatility becoming from being a face to a heel, bouncing back and forth, um, and his longevity within the WWE until I think, until he wanted to become a major part of the AEW, to build up that business. And I think WWE respected that enough to where, okay, you had pretty much 15, 16 years on and off with us, you know, yes, go, you earn that respect, best wishes and all that. But his debut, even his returns, got to make a list because he always did some sort of, some great return. He had a couple of them, be it on, coming back for like the Royal Rumble, Um, his latest one was, the list. You remember the list? You just made the list. Him running around with Kevin Owens.
So since we both agreed on Y2J debuts, my next
And
probably biggest debut after Y2J, and this is not just for WWE but wrestling in general, the debut of Kane.
I was thinking Kane too, because remember, yes, you're debuting the character Kane, but remember he was there as
Taking up the left side, but
he was Diesel. Remember he was fake Diesel there for a
yeah,
little minute, and then he was Isaac Yankem. Like, who has a 7 foot dentist? Whoever came up with that gimmick was just, I mean, that had Vince McMahon written all over it. But the debut of Kane at Hell in a Cell, or no, it was in your house, with Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels. And to come in to show, like, him ripping the door off, him screwing the Undertaker over because that was his long lost brother, left him in a house fire and all that, right? And Kane's debut was definitely truly memorable. Couldn't have happened at a better time for him, and they really made him push from this, like, when he was Isaac Yankem, he was like a jobber. I mean, same thing with
yeah,
Fake Diesel, right? This definitely pushed him definitely well into mid card and into main event, right? I mean, you
yeah.
debuted in a Hell in a Cell match, and you got the Undertaker, who was well within his prime, and people already respected Taker at that point too. So
Yeah,
to
so
say,
much.
hey, you're debuting with Undertaker, that's hats off. That was a great, great storyline and a debut.
Agreed. So, do you have
Tip,
a do you have
Tiffany's
another?
beating meat upstairs.
She's beating her meat upstairs.
We're doing pork ribs.
Ah, you're gonna put you with her meat. So,
um,
do you have another one on your list, or was it?
yes, I do. I'm gonna go with Rey Mysterio, his
I have
initial debut. Um, and to go along with like the greatest debut, his entrance was very unique as well, getting shot up out of the floor.
look
And
at that jumping out the sky.
it was, the theme music with it. Um, he was still young, and he really brought, obviously the collapse of WCW. But the when they integrated the cruiserweights in WWE, um, you cannot have a cruiserweight division and not have a Rey Mysterio. That luchador, that crew, that kind of. Um, so his debut was definitely up there.
Yeah, I agree. I don't remember much of the lead up to his debut, but I do remember his initial, like some of the vignettes or they did, or where you saw his mask in the
Right.
shadow.
Remember, that was the teaser, right? Is just showing a mask, and Rey Mysterio's masks never really. Yes, they changed, but when you saw a mask, the first name that came to mind.
Yeah, you saw the little bird on the side, and you knew it was Rey Mysterio. If you saw the skull, you knew it was La Parca. Like there were so many different masks connected to individual guys that as soon as you saw just a little shadow of it,
Um,
you knew it was Ray.
then he went even about beyond and did change up his mask. I remember one mask he had. It was the Joker from The Dark Knight. That was pretty cool. Um, obviously up in age, obviously he brought his son in. Um, I'll never forget
You mean
the
Eddie's son?
I will never forget. You remember the custody ladder match between him and Eddie Guerrero? Only in WWE can you settle a custody battle. Whoever gets to the papers first is the true father of this kid. Right?
I'm not sure it will hold up in a court of law,
You know,
but
I mean, I'm sure, like, you sure you can't just like take some vial of blood? No, it's the ladder match. Whoever
that's
gets the paper first is Dominic Mysterio's father.
how do you think we're going to get the blood?
You know, um, and speaking of debuts, I want to go. It wasn't as received. I enjoyed it. This is just a personal preference. But when the Radicals debuted,
Yeah,
right? I mean, no one may not think it's a top debut, but I liked because you had four wrestlers that were all highly skilled with Eddie Guerrero, Chris Benoit, if I'm allowed to say his name, Perry Saturn, and Dean Malenko, right? And Dean Malenko and Perry Saturn are definitely on the later end of their career, right? I mean, Dean only wrestled probably full time for a couple more years before he went backstage and became a producer. And then Perry Saturn, I think him and Moppy just went a little too far.
yeah.
Uh,
He
um,
fell on some hard times, unfortunately.
very hard times, and wish him Godspeed. Best of luck, and hopefully he's doing great. But yeah, he definitely fell off. But their debut, right? Because remember WCW was still kind of around
Yeah, they weren't
that
doing
point,
very well,
and
but they're hanging on.
they came in early, right? That's when you kind of knew something was happening. Because remember, me and you watching Raw, bouncing back and forth between Nitro and Raw. Um, that's how my Monday nights were growing up. I don't know about yours.
Yeah, trying to find a channel between commercials and setting up another TV so you could have both going at the same time.
Running between rooms.
Yeah, but
Now now I got the ability to do multi-screen, so I could,
yeah,
hey, bring back WCW now. It's fine. I got multi-screen.
yeah, I got picture in picture.
Um,
But
going with, I might steal your thunder here. Can I get one more in before you go?
sure,
How about the original debut of the NWO?
that to piggyback my the debut that I had was Hall and Nash on Nitro. So
Outsiders.
kind
Yup,
of
we know that was the start. If you tie it in, I mean, that was the start of really the NWO. I mean, yeah, Hulk Hogan with his turn, but it started with Nash and Hall coming in and getting labeled the outsiders. You
sorry, my
know,
dog's not eating.
but the NWO debut, the original NWO. See, the second one wasn't.
Oh, the WWE one.
Yeah, I think of the Rock's like meme, like this is the biggest piece of dog shit I've ever seen. Um, like they tried to bring out something that was already kind of ruined when they let like Jeff Jarrett take over the new NWO, like that in late 2000, like that, it wasn't the same.
No, it was.
As the dying breed, the end that faction ran its time and tried to resurrect something with the original members, mind you, which was the good idea. You had the three original members,
He's
and
gonna inject the poison into
right,
your dog.
that was the lead up. I like the inject the poison, like how Vince McMahon wanted to kill his own company by injecting the NWO in it, right? So it was a great idea. I think it was just you could have done something different with that. The debut wasn't as great. I mean, granted, I liked seeing Hulk Hogan back. I liked seeing Scott Hall back, Kevin Nash. Um,
What I will give the WWF WWE run of the NWO, the ultimate payoff of WrestleMania 18. That made
Rock versus Hogan.
yeah. They could have done better with Scott Hall and Austin. That was good match, but it was just kind of like
I
when you
did
have
like
Rock.
for the few months they made Rock and Stone Cold's life hell,
Yeah, so
like building the storyline up, like that was good. But just like the debut, like it was just like, like it was like, I mean, you go in the debut, like it almost reminds me, like I watched Inside the Ropes, right? Um, And I heard a lot of wrestlers did not like the invasion angle.
It
Getting a
was
little
not good.
sidebar, getting a little sidebar here, right? But it was just like even Paul Heyman, he's like, not only am I producing this, but I'm also on screen with it. He's like, I can't just wait till this fucking thing just to end. Like, like
Hey,
no
come
one
on,
liked it. It was like,
eat the food. Come on.
um, but
Yeah,
yeah,
Invasion
NWO,
Day.
sorry, the NWO debut, the original one. Because I didn't see Hulk Hogan turning heel.
Oh, no, nobody did. Mister, eat your vitamins, and say your prayers. That was that was a surprise to everybody.
Right, remember that was his first heel turn, and Hulk Hogan did a good heel.
Oh, he did. He owned it. He did.
And like his heel turn actually made people hate him. Like not as a character, but just like, holy crap, you could how could you do this? Remember, he was the real American, right? I mean, going back to the 80s and the WWF, and it hurt watching him leave the WWF to go to WCW. And obviously,
Now you want to eat? Now you want your food? Like she's staring. Sorry, she's staring at her food, not eating. As soon as I open the door to walk out, and she sees clothes. Now all of a sudden she wants her food.
well, hey, she's eating.
Yeah, no, him, yeah. But speaking of the connection with WCW and NWO, my final debut, Eric Bischoff on Raw. Tell me, I
I did
did.
not think of that debut, but no one saw it coming. But it was a great move on WWE to pick him up because just Eric Bischoff led that charge that almost pushed Raw out. Like you know, Eric. I mean, love him or hate him, but he is a genius when it comes to wrestling.
Yeah, it was Booker T's reaction on that Raw is the reaction everybody had.
Right, no one saw it
Tell me I
coming.
didn't just see that coming.
Right, because how obviously well about the Monday Night Wars and Vince McMahon. Going against Eric Bischoff. I mean, you can hate the person as an individual, but you got to love him as a businessman, right? I mean, that would have been the last person on earth that you would think that'll debut as a GM.
Yeah, like what is he even fucking doing there?
Right. Right. And he just, comes out and he's hitting right here because, people saw it. It was a mixed, remember, the debut was like a mixed reaction. I heard some cheers. I heard a lot of boos. And it was like, and you want to get the reaction, right? I mean, that's all it's about, regardless if it's a good reaction or a bad reaction, the reaction. Um, but the debut of Eric Bishop, I didn't even think about that one. Didn't even think about that.
Yeah,
You know, and going along with like
hey,
now this debut I'm thinking of now, it was great. It was short lived, but the original Goldberg debut on WWE, um, because everyone knew he was coming. It's just when,
matter of what?
right? And so that kind of ruined that anticipation. Like, okay, he's coming, we just don't know when. So don't be too surprised when he shows up. And I just wait, his debut in WCW, even then that wasn't even that great. Because he
And
wasn't he wasn't a household name, you
yeah,
know.
nobody expected anything out. Yeah, nobody expected what would happen.
Right.
Yeah.
Then I recently found out that his undefeated streak, um, he didn't actually wrestle that many matches. They just kept bumping up the number. every so often because of the house shows and all that. And they're just like, was he undefeated? Yes. Was it 176 or whatever it was? No.
It was more like 12. Any more debuts that you would like to bring
I
up or
like
mention?
I like the Big Show's debut
His
during
original
the
debut?
Austin McMahon steel cage match, one of the last original cage matches. Remember the original cage?
Yeah, All Blue.
At St. Valentine's Massacre. His debut was uh definitely not expected. Um so I think that debut was definitely pretty decent as well.
All right, then my last debut, and they're going to be on the list multiple times. Um, LOD's original 1990 debut. They had already had a reputation at that point.
They already had the name of Legion of Doom before.
Yeah. So, but again, like I said, they'll be on the list again. Make the list.
LOD, hands down, the one of the greatest tag teams to ever be formed. Starting in NWA and paving the way for like the whole tag team division, right? And when you saw those guys come down, it was intimidating. They're wearing the football pads with the spikes on. You had the face paint. Um, it No one wanted to face them. um,
It was like Goldberg. It didn't last very long, but you were getting your ass attitude.
um, and then, like you said, they made multiple debuts, right? I mean, they went out, they came back, um, went to WCW for a minute, came back to WWE. Then, unfortunately, the passing of um, Hawk was the first one to pass, and then they tried to bring back um, with Hidden Right with Animal. Um, it was I respect it. But my favorite debut of the LOD was LOD 2000 when they had Sunny.
Yeah. And my list of returns. They returned in '96. Their reinvention is LOD 2000, and then when they came back in 2003, when who was it? It was Kane RVD champions, and who was it that was on like the greatest tag team of all time? And all of a sudden, and the crowd just the Road Warrior pop. They could be gone for 10 years or 10 minutes. That music hits, boom, the crowd erupts.
And you had
Yeah,
no other choice but to respect what the team has done.
yeah, like they're undeniable.
Um, no, the LOD definitely deserves a place on the list for debuts and returns. Because every return they did was very well perceived, and you weren't disappointed.
Even if you didn't like them, you were not disappointed.
Oh no, no, a
So
return. You remember?
speaking of speaking of returns, um, is there any returns that you were excited, stuck out, memorable? Because I have a few.
I liked the return of Undertaker as the American Badass.
Same.
Um, because there was a risk. It was a high risk for Undertaker because you didn't know how that character was going to be perceived. You know, and it worked out that people took that in. When he became the American Badass, Ready, Big Evil, um, for the few years, and then then the other return, right, of the original Undertaker. So Undertaker definitely deserves a spot on the list of returns.
Yeah,
Not his yearly match at WrestleMania, but just like when he went from one persona to the other.
yeah.
You know,
There were so many that I was like trying to pick just one, and it was like the only one that I could think of that for me was him coming back as American Badass. And other than that, I was like, I don't want to pick any other of the returns because there were all so many and they were all big that it was like, frankly. But
um,
my biggest return probably hit the hardest.
John Cena.
I don't know. I couldn't see it.
Oh, okay.
Triple H returning to Madison Square Garden on Monday Night Raw.
In 2002. One of the most memorable returns too, because he did, to pick the perfect time, like the history that Madison Square Garden has, right? And then Triple H returning and him beating a face. Um, real good return. They built that up too, and I like the build up of it. Because even then, you knew when he was going to return, and it still didn't ruin it. Like you were waiting, um, and that's I think the main difference between like returns and debuts. Like debut, you got to be spontaneous with it. With a return, you give a date, and then it's like,
And to build it up correctly, to build it up right, it'll be special. You know,
no, that was special. Same with like Stone Cold, right? The Stone Cold return after his neck surgery when he got hit by the car. I did it for the Rock. Um, and then the build up like Stone Cold being on SmackDown, um, and then being at Backlash, ruining Triple H.
and so any other debuts that hit for you that you could think of?
Any other debuts? Um, no
Quickly,
debuts. No.
give me a second here. I wrote down some kind of honorable mentions that I thought at least were big, at least for the time here. Probably time for you. Come on. Uh, I had Sting returning as Crow Sting.
Oh, from yeah, that's a good one.
Um, we talked about the LODs. And then recently, CM Punk and Cody's return.
No, that
CM
was a
Punk's return. Punk's return was kind of built up. Uh, Cody, Cody, Chloe, come on,
no CM Punk return.
Chloe,
I
come
mean,
here.
uh, Cody Rhodes' return was good too, considering you know they released him back in like 2017 or whatever it was.
And then him coming back and finishing his story, and yeah, I thought it was just his debut and ultimate payoff was good.
I mean, I totally blanked on like those honorable mentions. Um, but you know, how about an honorable mention of this may not be a group people, But how about a debut of the first TLC match?
Yeah. Uh,
Remember the build up to that, where each of those tag teams had this, the Edge and Christian had the chairs, Hardy Boys did the ladders, and obviously the Dudley Boys with the tables. And then, you know, hey, why not put it together all in one match, make it a ladder match, but you just incorporate chairs and tables. And the debut of that match, if I remember correctly, the original one was at a SummerSlam. TLC 2 was at WrestleMania 17, which is by far the best TLC match of all time. Um, to go along with the best WrestleMania of all time. Um, I will die on that sword. um, but that was just like my non-person debut was that match. I mean, you could say the same thing of like the elimination chamber just because of the sheer size of what they were doing. Hell, you could throw the Hell in a Cell on it. And due to budget cuts, Reggie, they can no longer do Hell in a Cell. It's going to be called Hate in a Crate. Uh,
a milk crate picked up on the corner.
yeah, they just found a giant milk crate and just like, okay, can't even have doors. You got to crawl through.
Hell in a cell? Not in this economy.
we, we can give you dislike in a jar.
Rot in a box. I don't know. Things built back better.
Ooh,
Really working.
we missed one totally. You made me think. The debut of Brock Lesnar,
Yes.
because I'm sorry, that was huge. Now they didn't, because he came out of nowhere and just started throwing people around, so he didn't get a build up, but he just kept interrupting matches. So it was a unique debut for this guy. He only had a couple of dark matches, you know, but how they made him debut, just ruining matches, going into and poor Spike Dudley.
Can never say it enough. Poor Spike Dudley.
um,
If
he
Spike
always
Dudley doesn't get in the Hall of Fame, it's tragic.
Speaking of Spike, I think we talked about him when we did one with the bumps, and Spike Dudley was like on the top of the list along with like Mankind with bumps. When Undertaker chokeslammed him out of the ring, Undertaker was highly against that, and Spike Dudley's like, no, do it. He's like, I'll be fine. And you heard the air leave Spike's body, and I'm like, dude, you just got dropped like 9 feet out of the air, land on your back on like 2 inches of padding, and you're like, yeah, go for it.
Taker just killed the guy.
It was.
Everybody on television is like, "Hey, mom, you want to see a dead body?"
Well, just go back to Over the Edge of '99. Sorry, that might have been a little dark.
And speaking of debuts, the Dudleys debuting.
That was huge because the only way you knew of the Dudleys is if you watched ECW.
Yeah, for nationwide, it might not have been a big deal, but for at least the Northeast,
Leaving.
that was a big deal.
Okay. I love you.
Love you too.
You gotta go school shopping. We got the list.
School supply shopping before everything's picked over.
Sounds like fun.
Remember, when your son gets old enough, as soon as the school supplies come out, you get that because by the time you do it last minute, everything will be picked over, and then you're not going to have stuff that you're going to need. So, that's why I do it now.
Noted. I'll go to Walmart and buy all the loose leaf and binders.
Trapper Keeper. 5-star Trapper Keepers.
Yeah,
He's on his way home.
gonna get him a gay pride one. Get them.
You know, but like I think we talked a good amount about returns, debuts of matches. Side note, I recently rewatched WrestleMania 2000, and I think that's an underrated one. Um, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Remember the greatest thing was Kurt Angle went into a triple threat match holding both titles of the European Championship and the Intercontinental Championship and lost them both and didn't get pinned.
The Euro Continental title.
Yeah, what was up with that thing? Side note: how many times did they merge the titles and they bring like, oh look, the European titles back? It's like, really?
You unified them just to break them up 6 months later. What the fuck?
Just like they're doing it again when they decided to bring back the Undisputed Championship, right? And now you have the Undisputed WWE Champion, and then you have the World Champion. I'm like, I never liked the fact of having two titles. Um, it's just unless you got a different promotion, but it always kind of drove me like, then who's really the top guy? I mean, you can have top guys, but the title, I'm like, what's the difference? I mean, it's it
Well, for how I always looked at it with the when it came to the two titles, um, the WWE World Title is the top title. The Universal Title, the World Title, however you want to look at it, that is the top title. Um, the heavyweight title is kind of it's like a 1A and 1B kind of situation. You know what I
gotcha.
mean? Like
Oh,
almost like for the sake of sounding disrespectful to the history of the heavyweight title coming from WCW, it's almost like they're almost making it like an elevated intercontinental title. Um, you do become U.S. champ, the intercontinental champ, the heavyweight champ, and then the world champ. You know what I mean?
right.
Um, but I have a kind of a somewhat theory about it. I mean, Ripley has kibble on her shoulder. Um, that Cena is in fact going to walk away with the Universal title, and we're going to be back down to either A one, right, or they're going to debut a new one. They're going to retire that design, come out with a new one.
And that'll be a good send off for Cena.
Yeah,
With that him because he said he's gonna leave wrestling with the title, and why not? And the fans saying, "Oh no, they will never do that." And it's like, what happens if they do? What happens if they, you know, everything that Cena's been saying he's gonna do?
he
What
actually
happens if
does
you
it.
just make that storyline and just do it?
Yeah, and like there has been precedent. If you remember that the original concept of the Royal Rumble was not to get a title shot. It was just a Rumble. And then it became for a shot at WrestleMania.
The main event of WrestleMania for the title.
Yeah, and then that's how Flair won his title in 93, 92, 93. The title was vacant.
Right, and they did it in Royal. They made the title. Whoever won the Royal Rumble won
Won the
that
title.
title.
So there's precedent for it that if Cena walks away with it, whoever wins the Rumble becomes the next champ. So
Sorry, I just had to close that up real quick.
no, you're good.
But no, with everything, what's going on? I haven't caught a Raw in a few weeks. I know this Saturday is Night of Champions, Saturday Night Main Event. Sorry, and Goldberg is facing Gunther. And John Cena is gonna face Cody Rhodes, and now again, good. Come on, Raz.
You got my dog barking. But yeah, I, my dog's barking.
Oh, Raz is very verbal.
Okay, chill out. It's okay. It's joke. Uncle Joe's dog.
He's
Okay.
not going anywhere, Raz. He's gonna be here. You know, I'm interested to see. Like, I don't think Cody Rhodes is gonna walk out a Saturday Night Main Event. The Universal champion. I think there's gonna be some sort of interference. That cost him because Cena's been, wrestling dirty. Um, he's fulfilling the heel character. Um, so, and I know we haven't seen The Rock in a hot minute. I'm kind of curious as to if The Rock will be the one to screw Cody Rhodes over.
Yeah, I agree. I don't. If Cena were to lose it, it wouldn't be on Saturday. You know what I mean? Uh, um, and same thing with Gunther. I've been, as much as I always kind of like seeing Goldberg, him coming out of nowhere, beating Gunther.
See, I don't think
It
he's gonna
doesn't
beat
fit.
him. I don't think he's gonna retire a champion. I don't think. I mean, because that means you'll have to if Goldberg wins the championship, right? Let's go hypothetical here. If he happens to win, um, and then he retires, now now he's got to relinquish that belt, and then what do you set up? Like, they already did the King of the Ring tournament. I could have solved that if they would have done it earlier.
Yeah.
Do the King of the Ring tournament for the vacant title. The finals being whoever wins, obviously you get the belt. Or, or is this where they're gonna finally give Drew McIntyre his well deserving longer than 5 minute title reign?
And I don't know if you have Sirius in the car, but
I
they
do.
have they have an entire Wrestle Nation channel now, just wrestling, and it's got like Tommy Dreamer and Bubba Bullet, Bubba, and Coach is on there, so they have an entire channel just for wrestling.
Kaden, I'll see you later, buddy. Yeah, I gotta work.
And the only suggestion, I think it was Bubba that said it, that sits right with me, that would sit right with me if Gunther loses, would be Seth cashing in. You know what I mean? If you want Gunther to lose, have Seth cash in.
Right, have Gunther lose that way. Goldberg gets his last match.
It doesn't hurt Gunther to have Seth cashing in, pinning Goldberg.
Nope.
Gunther winning makes pinning Goldberg makes him look better. Takes nothing away from Goldberg.
Nope. Was
But
Goldberg pushing, talent?
Yeah, putting people over. But Goldberg winning, I think, would hurt. Hurt Gunther more than it would help him. You know, that's just my opinion.
If Gunther's gonna lose, it's gonna be because of Seth cashing in. I think that's the most logical thing. Is that
Yeah, it's great.
but
It's like,
yeah, it's
yeah, I mean, you can't. It would be you bringing in Goldberg, who's been sitting around doing nothing for months, and then all of a sudden he's out here being world champion again. Come on.
There we go. We're back. We're back. It was me. That was me. I left my Wi-Fi.
And
Can you
it's
hear
still
me?
fun. I can hear you. You're frozen. Oh, there we go. There we go.
Okay.
But
I don't foresee Goldberg winning. I don't think it's a logical move to have Goldberg win. I understand it's his last match, but again, the only way I foresee him winning, have him win the title, and then maybe Seth cashes in on Goldberg and get 2 pushes for the price of 1. I mean, Seth is already over, but why not add that to Seth Rollins' resume? Have Gunther bring Goldberg to the limit, right? Goldberg still somehow wins, and then Goldberg, beaten, but winning, and then you got Seth Rollins coming in and be like, nope.
mine now.
Now that I think that is the ending. I think that would be the best one. Instead of Seth cashing in the one in the match to make it a triple threat, have him cash in on the victor. Have Goldberg win his last match. Have him raise the title one last time. And then Seth cashes in on Goldberg.
That cashing in is the only logical thing in my mind. However you want to do it, but it's ultimately Seth hitting Goldberg,
You
right?
won't see it, right? It's if Seth wins, it's Seth. Who's he pinning, right? I mean, that's the thing why he's like, holy shit, Seth just pinned Goldberg. Regardless of the age, right? You got to go on the character, right? I mean, logically, it's Goldberg. Not very many people have beaten Goldberg in WWE.
Goldberg. Nobody. They have not had anybody beat Goldberg clean since Goldberg came out 30 years ago.
Right.
Which is, that's why, like I said, like Gunther beating Goldberg clean would only solidify Gunther. It wouldn't hurt
No,
Goldberg.
no. Goldberg is not gaining anything in this.
Goldberg has nothing to lose by losing.
Nope.
And him winning, him ultimately winning, I think only hurts everybody else. So if it's a quick him beating Gunther and then Seth cashing in, I think that averts it. Because I wouldn't want Goldberg running around for too long with it, or Gunther beating him clean, and
I
then
think
Seth.
that's the only 2 logical things. I mean, really, that would make the most sense. If they decide to have Seth cash in, is Seth cashes in. I think if Gunther beats Goldberg clean, Seth doesn't cash in. If Goldberg wins, I definitely am in favor of Seth then cashing in on Goldberg. Let him get his pose on the top rope, right, holding the title one more time. And then Seth comes out of nowhere, freaking trips him up, has him fall and stumble, hits him with a curb stomp, and pins him.
Or all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you have Braun Breaker doing laps around the friggin' ring to build up, and next thing you know, boom, Braun Breaker spears the fuck out of Goldberg. Like the spear is mine now, and then Seth throws him in the pin.
Is it true that Braun Breaker's Steiner's kid?
Mm-hmm. and it's Rick. He's Rick Steiner's son, and then Scott Steiner, his son was playing college football, and he's been training. So
Yeah, Rick or they're Braun Breaker's something. His athleticism is something different. I mean,
just an animal.
so I know they're definitely going to make a huge push for him. I think they just got to get through some of the storylines they want to finish, like the Cena storyline,
Yeah.
and wherever this world title goes. But I definitely expect a huge push for Braun Breaker, more than just Intercontinental title. I'm thinking he's the kind of guy that's going to be holding the world title, and then he's going to be the guy like, hey, he's going to be the tough one to beat.
Oh yeah. I would dare say within the next 5 years, you're going to see Braun Breaker heavyweight champ. You know, he might win. He might win the tag titles in there with Bronson Reed. He might win the 39 title again. But within the next 5 years or so, he is the next big thing.
And that's another thing, too. Like, Brock is still on the roster, as last time I heard or read.
Yeah. And if this whole storyline with Seth and Heyman and Braun Breaker, they're going to need a fourth man. Who better than the original Heyman guy?
Why? I mean, they could use him, but I could see it going both ways. You know, I could see, because remember, Heyman turned on Brock 2 times. We might, I think, if you had, Brock maybe challenge that whole stable, and then who better than Brock Lesnar to actually to go against, Braun Breaker? Who would want to see that match? That's main event status right there, automatically, right?
Dude,
I mean, Bronson Reed, they got him for the big guy, and Seth Rollins is being like the Triple H cerebral assassin kind of character in the stable.
Yeah. Seth is Hunter, Heyman's Ric Flair. It's like
almost got like an Evolution 2.0 almost going on. But where is Brock? Like, we want him. Everyone wants Brock back.
It's just a matter of time. Like, when is he going to pop up?
I only hope it's sometime soon, because remember the feud that him and Cena have had in the past.
That is a 20 to 25-year-old feud.
Right. I mean, if you go back to the beginning where John Cena was punking him, like, doing just rapping about him, making fun of him. Then you remember when Brock Lesnar returned on a Monday Night Raw? Who's in the ring?
And again,
you may not have known this because you may not have seen him, but it was Cena. And Cena went over. It's like, they're not gonna forget. Like, I think they gotta kind of incorporate that a little bit. Like, if Cena's not gonna leave with that championship, you could see taking it away from him. Right? I mean, there was like Cody. No, fuck Cody. Cody sucks right now.
But yeah, that's a good idea. I like the like what you're thinking. Cena only has what 15 appearances left. What if one of those at the end
Cena's
there
last
is
match,
an open
he does
invitation?
remember he's just like the U.S. title. Hey, who's going to take this title away? This is my last wrestling match. Who wants it before I walk away from it, right? Take that heel character, start digging some more. Like, all right, you got a bunch of, clowns back there, and all of a sudden Brock Lesnar comes out.
Suplex City.
And it doesn't have to be a long match either. Because it can be a 3-minute match, just the shock of Brock Lesnar returning, annihilating Cena that fast, and getting the title belt to stay in WWF. Brock Lesnar would be beloved for that. Then no one loses. Cena goes out, right? He did his 20-something years. And then you got Brock back holding the title.
And imagine Cena standing in the middle of the ring with an open invitation for anybody in the back, and then all of a sudden the music hits. All you see is Brock standing up there doing his little friggin' thing and just walking down to the ring and hopping up on the apron. They go back to the, punching, boom, 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 STFU, F5, just back and forth. Somebody goes through the announcer's table, they're brawling on the outside, and next thing you know, just suplex after suplex after suplex again, and it's over. Like you said, it could be a 3 to 5 minute match, but just impact after impact after impact, and then it's done. Like a tornado just went through.
That should be the ending of the John Cena heel run for this WWE title. No one's going to be mad. Then John Cena will probably, they'll hear the crowd chanting, "Thank you, Cena."
He's going to get cheered regardless. Once this is all over, he's going to get cheered. He's going to be like, once he's done and he walks away, give it cheers. He's in the Hall of Fame. You know what I mean? If not the next WrestleMania, he's getting inducted. You know what I mean?
It's I think that's the storytell ending that everyone wants, or that everyone should want.
Or imagine the last match, like you said, open invitation. And then all of a sudden you hear Randy Orton's music come out. He starts walking down, and then it gets interrupted by Brock. So it becomes like a 3-way. All those 3 guys that came up together in the ring at the same time, just staring at each other.
Or here, go with me here. Or the return of Gilbert.
Sparklers come out. He goes to Spear Cena. He just bounces off. He goes to Spear Cena. Cena steps out of the way.
I don't think I've ever seen Gilbert win a match. I think they gave him that light heavyweight championship. Like, hey, you're gonna hold this. You're just a dumb gimmick.
Yeah,
but
just hold it for a couple weeks.
Run with it. I think I've only seen him lose it to like Taka Michinoku. And of course, obviously, side note, when they brought back Goldberg, you remember Gilbert came out too, and Gilbert doing dumb Gilbert things, But he was a good jobber.
Yeah, dude. They really need to do a jobber wing of the WWE Hall of Fame.
Brooklyn Brawler.
Brooklyn Brawler, Gilbert, Barry Horowitz, and even the higher end, like Al Snow, Keith Richards, the Job Squad, like, just like an entire separate wing just for them,
They these are the jobbers that wrestled people in matches that brought up this new talent. Like Al Snow wrestled Brock Lesnar, and Brock Lesnar obviously made sure they made sure Brock Lesnar annihilated Al Snow. I mean, but I think there should be a separate induction. If they induct Al Snow, they need to have a separate induction for Head.
Al Snow gets
Just
inducted, and
saying.
then all of a sudden he steps aside, and all of a sudden you see Head pop up.
Head.
They give Head a little
short run with Pepper. I don't know if you remember Pepper.
They were.
It's it'll be interesting to see the next Hall of Fame class for WWE. I think John Cena, they should do the right thing and put John Cena in it, 100%. And that should be the last time he takes the WrestleMania stage, right? Because he said he's going to be done with wrestling. So yeah. I don't even know if he's going to do appearances anymore. Right? I think he might be talking a lot about that because Stone Cold said he was done with appearances and he kept coming back here and there.
Yeah, the appearance here and there is great, but actual in-ring work, I can see it. I can see him taking a couple months off, a couple years off. They're doing a couple movies, showing up for like WrestleMania, SummerSlam, or something. But who do you think they would have induct Cena?
Who would induct John Cena?
Yeah. Batista, friggin' Randy, his dad.
You could Kurt Angle. I mean, he had a feud with Kurt Angle. Hell, you could have Brock Lesnar because of the feud. You could have. There's so many possibilities. Hell, you can even have. Well, no, Vince is done with it. But you know what? That's a really good. Who would be the one to induct John Cena in the Hall of Fame? That would be the most fitting.
Like some guys, it's easy. Some guys, when they inducted Paul Bearer, obviously Undertaker's inducting. When Mean Gene got inducted, of course Hogan's going to induct him. But when Flair got inducted, of course Triple H was going to do it. But it's like Cena, you have so many people to choose from that, especially now that Vince is completely out of the equation, who are you going to pick? Who is big enough to be able to induct John Cena?
You could have hell, you could even have like Stephanie McMahon do it, and no one would be mad about it because they're the beginning of the Ruthless Aggression era. It was her idea for him to go with the rapping thing.
That's true.
And that's what made the John Cena character was that. It was, yes, he had the body and had the skill, but what was going to be his persona? I remember his debut, again, another good debut that's probably severely underrated, because he came out to this basic music in these red trunks and slapped the shit out of Kurt Angle.
Yeah.
Remember? What are you going to do? Ruthless aggression and slap the shit out of him. That right there was the beginning of the Ruthless Aggression era. When John Cena debuted, they may break up the years, but his debut, I think it was like 2002 or something, or 2000, that was the beginning of the Ruthless Aggression era. The way he said it, the pop of him slapping the shit out of Kurt Angle, I'm pretty sure they talked about it, and Kurt's like, you better slap the shit out of me if you want to make this believable.
Yeah, do it with your entire chest, boy.
Right. Go for it all. Don't hold back. Like, make it. And, Cena, and he did. So that's why I say it could be like Stephanie McMahon, it could be Kurt Angle, you could have Brock Lesnar. I mean,
Yeah, I always say Cena was never my favorite, and I'll never put him on as the top of goat. But I respect John Cena. He's done so much, and it's like just over the last 20 to 25 years, how many people has he worked with? How many people? It's like, who do you choose? Who does he choose? You know what I mean?
right. I mean,
Mickey.
he's done a lot for the business. He's done a lot for Make-A-Wish. Like, he deserves, I wouldn't be too upset if they have, the original, even have Ric Flair induct him in, just because of the similarity of the title reigns.
Yeah.
You got a lot of possibilities, but which one is going to be the right one, right?
Yeah.
Which one is going to be that one that where no one's going to, they're going to say, no, that one was right.
And that's why I said you kind of let him choose, like who, somebody like John Cena, who you let him decide who he wants to induct him. And be like, all right, cool, and because whatever is right to him, basically, Woo. But
if you want to go original feud, I mean, his first major feud was with Kurt Angle.
who should induct him? Mr. Bling Bling Buchanan.
Mr. Bling Bling Buchanan.
Bull Buchanan.
Another good jobber. Sorry, just change the subject. Where's Bob Holly?
Dude, I can't tell you how many stories I hear, like YouTube videos or whatever, interviews. Bob Holly was a dick.
No. Yes, he was. He went so stiff, like when he was on the Tough Enough the show. Like, I think it was when he had that old school man. I heard he was a dick.
Like, and he was proud of it too. And you gotta tell Bob Holly to knock it off. Oh my! You just don't renew his contract.
But his character evolution. Remember, he was never hardcore Holly. He was Bob Holly. He had the long hair and
Sparky Plug.
Then I think it was Brock Lesnar who dropped him on his head, broke his neck.
And again, I could see Bob Holly being a dick, pushing Brock to his fucking breaking point, and Brock just saying, fuck you and dropping him on his head, what are you going to do to Brock Lesnar?
Make a storyline out of it on Bob's return and think Bob is all this big bad guy going right after Brock Lesnar, which worked, but obviously he didn't win. But it's just like Bob came back out with a vengeance, and I think it was out of if it was personal, I think he used that for the return.
Yeah, I mean, you can make a good storyline out of it, but honestly, like, Bob, I know you're a badass. You take pride in being a dick, but seriously, it's fucking Brock Lesnar.
It's Brock
Yeah,
Lesnar. Like, what are you gonna do?
it's not you and Chris Benoit beating the shit out of Public Enemy, okay?
Oh yeah, Chris Benoit's definitely got the number one for that. I still remember we talked about on one podcast that I remember you ordered the pay-per-view. We were going to watch it in your barracks room. I think it was like an Unforgiven pay-per-view. I think it was Unforgiven, where Chris Benoit was supposed to be in a triple threat match.
For the
And
ECW title, I think it was.
whatever title, but they threw in John Morrison. I mean, granted, they had to throw somebody in there that wasn't involved in a match. Just like, hey, we need a filler. Like, something's happening. We need you to go. And so that's what threw me off, because I remember the build-up. Like, we wanted to see, like, at that time, I was a Chris Benoit fan. Like, it just his skill. But it was just like, where's Chris Benoit? Where's Chris Benoit? And then, you started here watching the news the next day. Oh, no, Chris Benoit and his family died. It's like, holy shit. And then it turned into, remember they did the memorial show.
That aged like milk.
And then they found out, oh no, it was a murder suicide.
Oops.
Oops.
If you watch that, I think the only person that thought it had nothing to say, or was like, I'm not going to comment on this yet, was William Regal. He knew something was up. He knew something. What it was, I don't know.
Well, I think that, and remember he was tight with the Guerreros too. But there was something more about it. Like, you could see, like, I watched a reel or a video when Chris Benoit, like, obviously they said they suffered from CTE, but you could see, like, every time he took a headshot, there was nothing right. There was nothing. He wasn't right towards the end of his career before he did what he did.
Yeah, it's not condoning by any means, but if it was because of CTE, that explains it. You know what I mean? Not condoning what he did, but
it gives an explanation, but it just doesn't justify, what happened. You know what I'm saying? Like, we talked about that too. Like, Chris Benoit's talent deserves to be, like, the character deserves to be in the Hall of Fame, whereas the person does not.
yeah,
I think we've had that discussion before, and CTE ruins a lot of people and makes you do some pretty unpredictable things. Case in point, and it kind of goes to show: do you really have that control over your actions because of this?
yeah, the whole thing was a shame.
It really was. I mean, it was a talent gone too soon. Like Vince McMahon said it bad. Same with like Eddie Guerrero. They were talents. In their prime. And I know that really bugged Chris too when Eddie died. Like, it bugged a lot of people. Like, that was Eddie Guerrero's death. That
Yeah,
was tough.
a lot of people said that it was really, but Benoit after Guerrero Eddie died, he really started going downhill after that. That's
I mean,
when
yeah, it wasn't more than 2 years later. Of it. Oh man. Well, I think we've been on an hour and 15 minutes. Holy moly.
Yeah.
I feel shocked.
Reggie needs a new short.
But yeah, I'm gonna head in here. I gotta use the bathroom before I get my shift started.
Well, the croc just came from the bathroom.
You could smell what the crock was cooking.
Brother Bacon. Brother Bacon.
Brother Bacon, Brother Bacon. Only time when Xbox did blackface.
They did that on national television, and nobody said maybe we shouldn't do this.
Nope, they said, we're gonna do it because it's the Attitude Era. And
You can't do that. We're fucking DX.
what do you mean? This is our whole thing.
Kind of a MO.
Well, you have yourself a good day. Thank you for
You
having
too,
me on
bud.
again.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. Thank you for wanting to continue doing these shitty videos with me.
Oh, hey,
Oh, excuse me.
they're fun.
Yes, these are
So next time, if one of us, has an idea, we'll pitch it to each other and see what it sounds like.
absolutely.
Well, until next time,
Till next time, buddy. You be good. Have fun at work, man.
be safe.
Deuces.